Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Allen. This is the Pentecost Podcast.
So how different is the Holy Spirit from the Father and from Jesus? It is interesting that the Bible does tell us through Jesus, when he's sitting with a woman, Samaria, having this conversation over water, and you will thirst no more, and this conversation goes backwards and forwards, and then she diverts the conversation that we worship here. And Jesus says, worship will no longer be limited to a location because the Father is Spirit. Now that can be a little bit confusing because often people tend to portray God the Father as an old man with a beard, with his finger sticking out and doing that very famous picture. But the Bible's, according to Jesus, the Father is Spirit. So that begs the question, how is the Holy Spirit different from the Father and from Jesus, And I think it's one of the most important questions in theology that you'll ever come across, because the Bible teaches that there's only one God, yet within that one divine being there are three distinct persons: Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Let's look at the Father first. The Father is God. So, the Father is presented as the source and the planner of God's redemptive work, the Father. Jesus taught the disciples and indirectly us to pray, "Our Father in heaven, holy is your name." Okay, and the Father sends the Son into the world, and together the Son sends the Holy Spirit. So the Father is God. He's not the Son. He's not the Holy Spirit. Now, Jesus is God the Son, and Jesus is the eternal Son of God. He wasn't created, even though the JW say that and the Mormons say that. The Mormons say that Jesus and Satan are brothers. JW say that Jesus was a created being. The Bible doesn't say that. Jesus is the eternal Son of God who took on a human nature to become man to fulfill a particular mission. John 1:14 says, the Word became flesh and made his tabernacle. He lived amongst us. And so, unlike the Father, unlike the Spirit, Jesus entered human history through his incarnation, through Mary. So Jesus was born in Bethlehem, lived a sinless life, died on the cross, rose from the dead, and ascended to heaven with a glorified human body. The Father did not become human. The Holy Spirit did not become human. Only the Son became flesh and now has a glorified spiritual body, which the Apostle Paul talks about likewise we will have in the future. And I think the Holy Spirit is God the Spirit. So Father, the Son, and now the Spirit. The Holy Spirit is not the Father. The Holy Spirit is not the Son. He is the third person of the Trinity. And Jesus calls him another helper in the Gospel of John chapter 14, verse 16. Another helper. Or and some versions, I think the King James Version uses the word another comforter. And in the Latin, comforte, come with strength. Okay, not counsel. How are you feeling today? No, not counselor, but comforte comes with strength. That's what the original word of comforter meant. And so the original Greek word of another means another of the same kind. So in other words, what Jesus is saying to us is that after he returned to the Father, another divine helper would come just like him. So the Holy Spirit, for example, convicts people of their sin. The Holy Spirit will regenerate believers. The Holy Spirit indwells believers, salvation. because in the Gospel of John, you know he is with you, he'll be in you. And so we find out that he will indwell Christians in salvation. He also baptizes you, like on the day of Pentecost, for power, for witnessing and spiritual gifts. And he empowers that ministry through the Spirit. He produces spiritual fruit, one of the greatest evidence of the presence of the Spirit living in your life, operating and empowering your life. And he guides believers into truth. Unlike Jesus, the Spirit did not become incarnate, didn't become a human being. And unlike the Father, the Spirit is sent to dwell permanently within, through believers. So they relate to one another. And one of the clearest pictures that we see is at Jesus' baptism. And in Matthew chapter 3, 16-7 says it this way: as soon as Jesus was baptized, he came out of the water. And as he came out of the water, at that moment, heaven opened up and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting, resting on him, and a voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, whom I love and with whom I'm well pleased." So in this one picture, in this one event, we see the three persons of the Trinity. The Son is being baptized. The Spirit is descending like a dove. And the Father, he speaks from heaven, affirming that he's the Son with whom he is well pleased. And so we have three distinct persons, different roles, one divine nature. The Father plans and sends. The Son Jesus accomplishes redemption with his life, death and resurrection. And the Holy Spirit applies redemption and empowers men and women on a daily basis. And this does not mean one is greater than the other. You know, the Father's greater. No. The Father, Son, and the Spirit are equally God. And it's not like, I think for a long time people thought the Spirit was down the bottom and Jesus was in the middle and the Father was at the top. They all share the divine nature and the glory and the power and eternity. What a magnificent thing. As my friend is, my friend, you are one step away from encountering you.